is Aaron Larsen, and in this video I'll be talking about Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone National Park is one of the largest and probably best known national parks in the United States. It is situated in the northwestern part of Wyoming and stretches into southern Montana and Idaho, stretching over 3,400 square miles. It includes the greatest concentration of thermal features of any place in the world. Yellowstone was also the first national park in the world. The entire park stretches 63 miles from north to south and 54 miles from east to west. Yellowstone has been situated in a region that has been both volcanically and seismically active for millions of years. Movement of the North American plate has thinned Earth's crust in the forming of a hotspot. A hotspot is a place where a dome of magma or molten rock comes close to the surface. Eruptions cause the magma dome to collapse when the contents are released, which creates an enormous caldera. The present-day Yellowstone caldera is roughly 30 to 40 miles below the park and directly below Yellowstone Lake. Yellowstone is often known for its many scenic lakes and rivers. The largest body of water is Yellowstone Lake, which has a surface area of 132 square miles and an elevation of 7,730 feet, which makes it the highest lake of its size in North America. Yellowstone has a high elevation, which makes its climate relatively cold. The north part of Yellowstone tends to have wetter summers and drier winters due to the elevation change. An increase of elevation almost always decreases the temperatures, which is why Yellowstone has lower temperatures. Because of Yellowstone's large area and varied elevation gain, it tends to have an unpredictable weather changes in different parts of the park. In the day, temperatures can reach 80 degrees in the summer, but drop below 40 at night. Yellowstone has very snowy winters as well. And now I'll be talking about Yellowstone's history. Late 1700s, Yellowstone was visited by fur traders and trappers, but there were not as many settlers until 1863 when gold was discovered in Yellowstone. Prospectors flocked to Yellowstone in hopes to find gold. With all this talk about gold in Yellowstone, the North Pacific Railroad Company heard of the news. This was a big opportunity to expand their railroads west. The company led an expedition that explored regions of Yellowstone such as Yellowstone Lake, Tower Fall, and the Geyser Basins. These are also the people who named the most iconic and popular geyser, Old Faithful. Painter Thomas Moran and a photographer, sketch artist were also on the expedition team. Their work introduced Yellowstone to the world. This captured the attention of Congress. On March 1, 1872, President Ulysses S. Grant signed an act establishing Yellowstone as the country's first national park. And now I'll be talking about Yellowstone's wildlife. Yellowstone has the largest concentration of mammals in the United States. There are approximately 100 gray wolves in the entire park. They live in packs of 10 and hunt elk as their main food source. One pack of wolves kills on average of 20 elk every month. Yellowstone's elk population is much bigger at a range of 10 to 20,000. Yellowstone is also home to approximately 150 grizzly bears. When they're awake from hibernation, they feed mostly on elk and bison and a large variety of plants such as grass, clovers, and dandelions. A female grizzly bear will have an average of 3 cubs. Since she has to feed her cubs, she will bump into gray wolves and other bears trying to eat. The cubs stay with the mother for around 2 years before the mother sends them off to fend for themselves. The most iconic animal is the American bison. Approximately 5,000 bison live in the park where they have freely roamed for thousands of years. The average bison stands over 6 feet tall and weighs over 1 ton, making it the largest land mammal in North America. The bison, although being so large, can run over 30 miles an hour, which helps it when being chased by Yellowstone's predators. The bison calves are able to run and keep up with the herd within hours of birth. Beneath the caldera sits the magma chamber, which has enough magma to fill the Grand Canyon over 7 times. The magma chamber stretches over 460 miles northwest into Montana. Yellowstone has had 3 eruptions in its history. Its first was 2.1 million years ago, its second was 1.3 million years ago, and its most recent eruption was 640,000 years ago. During its past eruptions, so much material comes out of the volcano that entire mountain ranges end up falling into the ground and disappearing. In its largest eruption, a 50-mile mountain range disappeared by collapsing into the magma chamber. Yellowstone is classified as a supervolcano because of the size of its magma chamber and the size of the eruption it can create. Nobody can perfectly predict what an eruption would look like, but as an idea, I'll talk about what the experts predict a Yellowstone eruption might look like in a worst-case scenario. Most people imagine lava flow from an eruption, but in a Yellowstone eruption, there would hardly be any of it, because if Yellowstone were to erupt, that 40 miles of rock above the magma chamber would all shoot up into the sky along with the magma. This eruption would be more like an explosion because there is so much pressure between the magma and the surface of the earth. Imagine pumping air into a balloon. The more air you pump in will create more pressure until the balloon pops. As Yellowstone erupts, it would shoot its magma along with the earth above it into the sky. This magma would harden in the sky and turn into small particles of scorching rock that would affect mostly all of the United States and southern Canada. Ash would also cover mostly all of North America. In a 1,000-kilometer range, roofs would cave in from ashfall and nobody would be safe because you'd be constantly breathing in a lethal amount of ash. The East Coast would receive at least 1 centimeter of ash, while even parts of Europe would see minor amounts of ash fall from the eruption. Because of the ash blocking out the sun, the global temperature would drop around 10 degrees. This change of temperature could last up to a decade. The ash fall would cause significant damage to crops and water supply and everything else in the western part of the world. But Yellowstone is not predicted to erupt for at least 100,000 years from now. Yellowstone can still have what is called a hydrothermal eruption. This would not be near as bad as a supervolcanic eruption, but can still be very dangerous. This type of small but still explosive eruption can occur from shallow reservoirs of steam or hot water rather than molten rock. These reservoirs are the sources of Yellowstone's famous geysers, hot springs, and fumaroles. Such explosions like these could blast out shallow craters more than a kilometer wide, as has occurred in northern Yellowstone Lake Basin, including Mary Bay and nearby Turbid Lake and Indian Pond, and in western Yellowstone National Park north of Old Faithful. A recent and notable hydrothermal explosion occurred in 1989 at Porkchop Geyser in Norris Geyser Basin. The remains of this explosion are still clearly visible today as an apron of rock debris 15 feet high. The largest hydrothermal explosion crater documented in the world is along the north edge of Yellowstone Lake in an embayment known as Mary Bay. This 1.5-mile diameter crater formed about 13,800 years ago. What triggers these explosions is still not fully known, but experts believe that they are primarily caused by earthquakes or the pressure of the water underneath. What makes these so dangerous is because they are unpredictable. Many people just imagine Yellowstone as a dangerous volcano, but aside from that, Yellowstone is one of the most beautiful places to visit in North America. If you are planning on visiting Yellowstone in the future, here are 3 must-see attractions you should visit while at Yellowstone National Park. Number 1 is Old Faithful Geyser. Old Faithful Geyser is the largest and most famous geyser in the entire world. Old Faithful got its name because of how often and consistently it erupts. Old Faithful erupts every 50 to 110 minutes, and when you visit the lodge, there is a sign that shows when it's predicted to erupt next, which is accurate down to 5 minutes. The eruptions shoot water between 110 and 150 feet high. I would highly recommend anyone to visit and see Old Faithful erupt while you're at the park. Another major attraction is Lower Falls. Lower Falls is the biggest waterfall in Yellowstone, flowing out of the Yellowstone Lake and Yellowstone River into the Yellowstone Grand Canyon. This waterfall dumps over 60,000 gallons of water every second and stands over 308 feet tall, making it twice as tall as Niagara Falls. Lower Falls is the second most photographed spot behind Old Faithful. The third most visited attraction is Midway Geyser Basin. This hot spring measures 370 feet across, making it the 3rd largest in the world. Midway Geyser Basin is deeper than a 10-story building, going 121 feet down into the earth. The hot spring has bright bands of orange, yellow, and green rings around the deep blue waters of the spring. You can get up close by strolling across the Firehole River and along the short boardwalk that snakes through the thermal area. Yellowstone is a unique and amazing place that everybody should visit in their lifetime if they have the chance. This is Yellowstone National Park. Thank you for watching.